I'm a person who's interested in ideas, not just to study them, but to communicate them. I write, I speak, I discuss, I debate. These are all things that my friend here has been engaging with for quite some time now. And I've came here to question you, how do we do it well? How do I do it better? And how do I actually become a professional at this? So, Nikos.
Simple. 80% I think of being good in communication is taking communication seriously.
What does that mean?
It means that you consciously take the decision, I want to become better in communication. Now, most people who we know who are doing this for either teachers or people who are even doing public speaking, I don't think they take communication seriously enough. So the first message to your audience is that it's not a talent, it's not a charisma, it is something that you work on. And I will give you a proof of how this is not something which is you are born with. I used to work at a university which was recording the lectures for students with dyslexia, for students who would miss class. So at some point I say, okay, let me see how I look in my lectures. I couldn't watch. It was absolutely pathetic. I was basically pacing up and down, looking like this. And every third word I used was, kind of, like, it was absolutely pathetic. Now, people had already told me, you're a good speaker, whatever. No, I was a horrible speaker. And slowly, then when I started doing it also within the objectivist movement, I realized that what I see in camera when I record myself is pathetic. And I need to do something to become better. So like everything in life, imagine if someone tells you, you're good in basketball, you don't need to train. Imagine telling Kobe Bryant, you don't need to train. It's just a talent. You either have it or you don't. No. So the first thing is be serious about wanting to be good in communication. And actually, I don't want to make this a solo podcast. You go on.
Well, I've had a similar experience, as a matter of fact. I remember my first talk, which is on my YouTube, as a matter of fact, was in Hebrew about the philosophy of Thomas Aquinas. It was like an 8-minute talk, very brief. It was a 2022. Actually, you were at that conference. I don't think you could understand anything, but you were at the audience in Tel Aviv. And I remember when I was on stage, I thought, hey, it went off pretty well. But then, and I'm sure you and people at the audience perhaps can relate to that feeling, but when I watched the recording, it was unbearable. Much like what you've said, I've walked here and there, and I spoke too fast.
Look, there's no question that you have a talent. We're not sure exactly what is it. Maybe it is this pompous style that you have, but this pompous style is rare. So it is something that you can work on, and it is something that can work on your advantage, if done well. So I think something that we should talk about is what are the main mistakes that particularly people in our ecosystem, let's say the wider liberty movement, the wider intellectual advocacy movement, two mistakes that people are doing. The first mistake is that people give their talks mostly without realizing it for themselves. What does that mean? They are not conscious of providing value to the audience.
Yeah.
How do I know that you are not interested in providing value to the audience? Your main concern is, I just want to make sure I won't screw things up. So what do you do then? You play it safe. For example, you read from notes.
Right.
To me, it's unacceptable. I know there are some people who read from notes, and I respect these people. Who am I to criticize Peikoff?
You mean like reading the thing from
yes,
a piece of
Leonard
paper?
Peikoff reads his talks from notes, but he's Peikoff. He can get away with it.
Right.
Very respectable intellectuals do it, but they have more, let's say, the role of the teacher. But if you want to be a good communicator, I cannot stand you reading from paper. Now I know this doesn't apply to all. But the problem with reading on paper is you're mostly in your own head. It's right. Mostly, I want to make sure I don't make a mistake. What about these people over there? These people are cheering for you. They want you to be good. They're not your enemy. They are
Right.
there to take value. They could be doing anything, and they've chosen to
Yeah,
spend.
you are there providing a service. To
Providing. That's the term. That's a good term, right? You are providing value. So I hope it doesn't sound mystical. The energy needs to be outwards. Okay,
Right.
outwards. Literally outwards. You're providing something. So that's the first mistake people do. They're stuck in their head. They give their talk for themselves. I want to make sure that I don't make any mistake. Okay, but that's not the challenge here. That's not what you want to achieve. What you want to achieve is that the people over there leave the room with something. At least they have an enjoyable time. Ideally, intellectually stimulating, enjoyable time, not you're a clone. And ideally then they can check you out, see what other work you've done, or you have planted the seed for something. But to plant a seed, it's very difficult to do it if they've already tuned off when you start reading. So I have 2 points, but I want to hear your thoughts on this first point.
I also think, I agree with your point. It's very much important to focus that you're here to do a job, and you should do it well. And it's just about, whatever things you have in your brain. You have to be in contact with the audience that is in front of you. They need to have a good time as well. You're there also ultimately, I think, as a kind of entertainment for them, but of spiritual value.
And sometimes it cannot be entertainment. Like you can give a talk for the Holocaust. It's not going to be entertainment.
But it has to be, still on the Holocaust, it has to be entertaining in the sense of, this is not funny, but in the sense of you are easy to follow, you're engaging, you're interesting.
Let's call it engaging. You have to, which means they have to be tuned in. They don't tune out. So the first mistake, I'm going to trigger objectivist.
Okay.
People are too selfish.
Right.
They only care about themselves. Now, the selfish thing is to want to be good in your talk. So the selfish thing is to provide, be a provider.
Right.
The second mistake I think people do, particularly in our ecosystem, is they have this duty in their mind that I need to make sure I need 100% to be sure that there's not a 0.1% chance that someone will misunderstand me. So everything they say, they go on tangents on, but I don't, or they want to please the gods of reason and rationality, or they think they have a duty. How many times have we seen it? A conference, let's say, an objectivist conference, and people start with these big quotes of Ayn Rand.
Or disclaimers about this or that.
I do the disclaimers as well sometimes. I did an AMA for my Patreon, and I mentioned Rothbard, and immediately, that's not too subtle. But even worse when you are in a big audience, right? Because think about it this way, and again, I understand. It's highly unlikely that we're going to come up with something better than Ayn Rand. I understand the need to use a quote. She put it in a way which is probably better than what we
it should be justified, the use of the quote.
It needs to be, exactly. So people are not there. They already know the quote, perhaps. You need to have a reason to use the quote. So you don't have a duty to use a quote. And ask yourself, if you were in the audience and you see a speaker on stage and they start a talk and you see a quote like that, like the whole page is a quote.
It's boring.
It's even if it's the best quote in the world. Like for me, even today, I've read, I still think every time, like these days I'm rereading The Red Pawn. I've read it like 8 times. It's like, this is the best.
It's your favorite work.
This is one of my best. This is the best author in history. I actually think Ayn Rand is the best mind in history. People usually say, it's Aristotle. For me, it's Ayn Rand. Having said that, a talk is different. A talk is not the time to pay homage to Ayn Rand. You have to communicate her ideas rightly. You don't have to put a huge quote. Have you seen it? Imagine I give a talk about Hayek, I start with a quote like that about Hayek. People already...
Yeah.
So
I think it's better to start with a story, for example.
You can start by various ways. We've seen very good talks that start with other things rather than with a quote. So the 2 mistakes I want people, that I try to avoid, at least people can do whatever they want, is number 1, I don't give the talk for myself. You get the point what I'm saying. I don't give the disclaimer. I don't give the talk for myself. I want to provide value to the audience. So in my mind, I have the audience. Yeah. And the second is, this is not an examination of whether you're a good, were a good boy or a good girl. So you don't have a duty to use particular quotes or to follow rules. You know, they have these stupid rules like, start with a funny story. No.
Yeah.
Do whatever would provide value to the audience. Put yourself in the shoes of the audience and ask yourself, would I want to see that? So these are the central rules. Like we could cut the video here. I think this would already be a good video, but continue.
I'm curious about this point you raised about people over obsessing about making a mistake and over obsessing about making everything perfect, and I'm sure we both have had that sense, and it's very quite admirable, right? But there's a sense in which you always have to risk making a mistake, and when you do, you should not panic, but the very fact that you take it confidently and move on in a way that doesn't make a big deal out of it is just, I mean, we've seen it just in the Oscars, I think, with Conan, who was hosting. If it was this year, maybe it was a different year, but he started,
I have no idea
and the first sentence, it was a good example, the first sentence he said on opening the Oscars was a mistake. But it's not that he stopped and said sorry, he just kept going. That's how professionals do it.
Exactly. The biggest mistake you can make, okay, I mean, you can make big mistakes, but the most usual mistake you can make is be forgettable and not be engaging, because you might have the best things to say. If people don't pay attention, they get wasted. So again, be value oriented towards the audience and be serious about communication, which means educate yourself on communication, read good sources. For me, the most important thing is rehearse. I know many people disagree on that. My public speaking model, hero, with Yaron Brook, often we disagree on that. Many people in the Objectivist universe think I over-rehearse. I don't care. That's how it works for me.
Yeah,
and it's not that I parrot the lines, right? It's just I make sure that I am stress-free on the stage, and it's me and the audience, and I don't worry whether I forget something. I know I'm not going to forget something. So spend time, prepare, do crazy things.
What do you mean, do crazy things?
I'll give you a secret which I haven't given before. Usually the Ocon talk was for me the most important event of the year.
Naturally.
And Ocon happens in the summer, and we live both in tropical climates. So the way I would prep for Ocon is I would try to find days with heat wave and walk outside and rehearse in the heat, or walk uphill and rehearse. And then, when I would be in the Ocon, I would go in the hotel whenever the stage was empty, maybe at night, and I would rehearse on an empty stage. It's very annoying rehearsing on an empty stage.
I remember that.
Hotel staff comes in, they think you're crazy. But here's the thing, if you rehearse in these different conditions, then when you're on the actual talk, the talk is easy. Right. The audience is there, you get energy from the audience. So I'm not telling you to do these things. But take it seriously. I cannot accept that you have the most important talk and you read from here.
Yeah, it also prevents you being thrown off in the middle of a sentence, which happens.
Exactly, like, you miss where I am. No, be present. I know it's going to sound cliche, like, be present. What does it mean, be present? It means they're real people here, and I want to provide the real value to these people. I have something important to say. That's the other thing. Very often, a talk, like how many times I've told you about podcasts, I don't want to do this because I haven't got anything to say.
Right.
Quite often you will see that you don't have something important to say. Then you shouldn't give the talk. So you remember that event we did in, what was the Ilmenau?
Yeah, Germany. Yeah.
Germany. There was a topic, something like how the philosophy, like a very general topic. Why would I be a good person to give that talk? The talk tanked.
But
Nikos,
it was. Wouldn't you say that there's a point in which you want to develop a certain skill, and like if you go to culinary school, sometimes you will deal with some very superficial, basic tasks, but they are necessary, like cutting an onion. It's necessary to master cutting an onion in order to give this complicated talks that you are currently giving. Wouldn't you say so?
the rule is always the same. You need to know what you're talking about. If you have nothing to say, you shouldn't be giving that talk. And or I'll give you another example. Last year, I gave a talk in Ocon, Is the US on the road to fascism?
Right.
I've never worked so hard in a talk. It wasn't at the end of the day, I think, a good talk. It was engaging and entertaining, but there was not much value in it. Why? Because I set for myself a task that I could not accomplish. How can you decide, how can you prove whether the US is on the road to fascism? How can you predict it, actually? It's difficult to predict. So don't set to yourself tasks that you cannot accomplish. Don't try to give a bet to the... Like, remember Yaron said this once, like we were rehearsing some talks on something on philosophy. He said, don't try to give, let's say, the philosophy who needs the talk better than Ayn Rand.
Right.
Find something that you can do. There's no way you can... Don't try to do things that are beyond... And also, if you have 20 minutes, you can't do it. So be very realistic about what you can do and what you cannot do.
I would say one of the things that really helps to master your content is to write about it, to do an essay about it. When I write about a topic, I am very confident that I can speak about it extensively, especially if it's a very extensive essay. It's much easier to take a big essay and just choose a part of it and turn that into a talk than probably the other way around, or to do a talk without the essay.
I always, again, now I give you how the sausage is done. I always script my talks first. I always script my talks. I don't like it. It's not fun.
Script, you mean fully? You write every word?
I write every word. This is not the talk that you're going to hear on stage.
Right.
The talk you're going to hear on stage is slightly different. But first I want to make sure I have something that makes sense.
Right.
And again, people are going to criticize me. I over prepare. I don't care. That's what works for me. You can do it your own way.
It's better to start as an over preparer, and as you get experience and you see you need less, you do less. I think that's very reasonable.
And I over prepare even for my podcasts and stuff, even for my videos.
I noticed.
Because again, there's so much competition out there. There are millions of people who vouch for people's attention.
Right.
The way to stand out is to produce good content. Now, if you're a one-in-a-generation talent and you can produce very good content without all this prep, more power to you.
Right.
I cannot do this. I haven't got the talent to show up here and start giving an impromptu talk.
There's a level of knowing the type of person that you are and the type of work that it requires for you to perform in the best way possible.
Yes.
That is and that comes from experience, only from experience.
And one of my major principles is to keep things brief. So this shouldn't be more than 20 minutes. So one last question.
Well, give us some story of what was the biggest lesson you got in public speaking?
Yes, the biggest lesson I got in public speaking is that when I deviate from these rules, it's a disaster. When I deviate, I remember there were two talks that completely tanked. Both of them were talks. Remember in Ilmina we did this. How do they call it? The performance. Yeah. The performance of the day. It was so embarrassing. I still cringe about it. So, but the truth is, I was lazy.
Right.
The night before, the hotel was nice. There was a gym. There was a game, a football game. Instead of preparing and rehearsing, I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to enjoy a nice dinner. I'm going to watch the game. Yeah. Next day, I made a fool of myself. So whenever I deviate from what I call the protocol,
right,
which to explain the whole way of prep would take hours, I might do it for my Patreon community at some point. But yes, whenever I deviated from it, I regret it. So find something that works for you and stick to it. This is just my view. Maybe something different. Maybe you are Michael Scott from Suits, where he reads something once and he remembers it forever. Okay,
Michael Scott's from The Office.
Okay, who's
Harvey Specter?
No, the kid.
Mike Ross.
Mike Ross. Sorry. If you're Mike Ross from Suits and you read something once and you remember it forever, don't rehearse. If you're not Mike Ross, I think rehearsal is the most important thing. If you take one thing from today, is actually two things. Provide value and rehearse, and you're gonna be fine.
Brilliant. Nikos, thank you so much. It was really valuable.
Always a pleasure.
This was a discussion with Dr. Nikos Sotirakopoulos about communicating ideas and how to be a better communicator. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like, subscribe, and follow my blog at philosophyinineeded.com. Do check out Nikos's channel and his new website, nikos.org, and become his members. Thank you very much for watching.